Happy Memorial Day. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's dedicate this weekend to all the men that served in the military and the armed forces, and especially the ones that fought and gave their lives in combat. Today's stories are going to be about some of the wise guys that served our country and fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Now, here's the pioneer of the commission, one of the most powerful gangsters in New York City. In all of the five families, you got Lucky Luciano. He had major influence on World War II. While he was locked up in prison, the government came to him and needed information that he provided on certain Italian and German agents that were trying to get in through the ports that the New York five families controlled. Now, here we got casino owner, businessman, Jewish gangster, Mo Dalitz, one of the most powerful, richest men in the country. Back in his day, he enlisted in the army in the early part of World War II, never saw combat, but this gentleman was very close with all the major crime bosses across the country and actually even ran the Stardust for a while. Now here's World War II Navy veteran and war hero, Sammy the Master Blaster Volpendenzo. I'll never forget seeing him in his orange prison jumpsuit in a wheelchair at the Mike Sarno trial. They got him on tape bragging about a bomb that he made that was used in an explosion in Berwyn. He was also talking shit about Largest Crew, Tony Ricardo, and Mad Sam. Now here's Rocky and Felice. He was a World War II paratrooper. He fought against one of Hitler's toughest regimes. Unfortunately for Rocky, along with his good friend there, Sally D, Louis Marino, Bobby Bellavia, and later Bobby Salerno, they were all convicted of killing Hal Smith at the good ship Lollipop trial. Now, part of the Irish gang, you got Jack Kennedy. He was a U.S. Navy veteran that fought in World War II. As we all know, his father, bootlegger, gangster, cut a deal with Sam Giancana and some of the other crime bosses in the country. They helped get Kennedy elected. Then they double-crossed the mob, putting them all in jail, and ended up calling Jack and his brother Bobby. It cost them their lives. Now here we got Chesty Puller and Audie Murphy, two of the most courageous, toughest Marines, two of the most highly decorated officers. They definitely don't make men like this anymore. My dad used to tell me all kinds of stories about Audie Murphy and Chesty Puller. And Audie Murphy got in a little trouble with some of the New York Wiseguys over some major gambling debts that he incurred back in the day. Now, Joey Lombardo was on tape threatening an attorney saying that Alan Dorpan is meek and humble and not violent, but he was one tough son of a bitch. He was actually a U.S. Marine that fought in World War II. He also controlled a very powerful, lucrative Teamster Central pension fund that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And right before he was going to testify, he got killed at the Purple Hyatt Hotel. Now, a special happy Memorial Day to my hero, my dad, James Imlac. My dad was a very proud, gung-ho Marine that fought at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea. He lost 6 of his toes to frostbite, and he always told me that Turk was by far the toughest Marine. My dad felt every young man should join the military. God bless my father and all those that have served. Now here's Jimmy Turk Terrell. My dad told me that there was a lot of tough guys in the Marine Corps with him, guys from Detroit, Philly, Cleveland, and that Jimmy Turk Terrell was by far the toughest out of all the Marines. They fought at the Chosin Reservoir together. My dad had no idea that he was affiliated with the Chicago outfit. He was going to become the upcoming boss of the outfit, but unfortunately for Turk, he died of natural causes. Now, here's my favorite Marine, second to my dad. You got Lieutenant Hal Moore, probably the most battle tested Marine ever. Him and his crew were some of the first men to have fought in the Vietnam War. And he knew early on that the United States could not win that war unless they chose their game plan. But unfortunately, the leaders and generals did not listen to Hal Moore. Now, here's probably the worst police commander ever. You got John Burge. He was actually an MP in the Vietnam War and would use all kinds of torture tactics against the Viet Cong. I went to his trial, and he allegedly tortured over 100 innocent black men to crimes they did not commit. He eventually was found guilty for lying to the FBI and sent to jail. Now, here's another tough son of a bitch. You got Rick Halperin, Vietnam veteran. He also did a small stint in the NHL, and he was one of the top defense attorneys in Chicago. I've seen him represent several Wiseguys back in the early 90s. And the last time I seen him before he killed himself, he represented Joey the Clown Lombardo at the Family Secret Trial. And unfortunately, from Joey, he was found guilty. Now here's Nick the Stick, or Nick the Coward Calabrese. I seen him testify at the Family Secrets Trial. He participated in 14 unsolved murders dating back to the 1970s. He also did a short stint in the Army and just missed going to Vietnam. Nobody has done more damage to the Chicago outfit than Nick Calabrese. Not only did he testify against his brother and Jimmy Marcello's, but basically the entire outfit. Now here's my hero, my cousin, James William Bell. And many years ago, Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson, and the Black Entourage were doing a march through Marquette Park. And Jimmy Bell and his friends threw bottles, bricks, and rocks at Martin Luther King. They got in a lot of trouble. Judge told him 1 year in the Cook County Jail or 1 year in Vietnam. He went to Vietnam. It was his turn to on point. And on his 19th birthday, he was killed in action in Quang Tri. Now, this is definitely a must-see, a to-do, something that should be on your bucket list. If you ever do visit Washington, D.C., you have to see the Vietnam Memorial Wall. There's over 58,000 names etched in this slate panels representing each soldier that was killed in the longest, most violent war in U.S. history. Very sad place to visit, but a must-see. Now, I strongly suggest for those of you who've never been to our nation's capital to visit Washington, D.C. Everything is close proximity to one another, so you can easily see it all in 1 to 2 days. But it's kind of a sad place to visit because after you tour all the monuments, exhibits, and museums, it's kind of sad because all these great men died for our freedom. If I was the president, the first thing I would do would clean up D.C. And everybody knows Sammy the Rat, Sammy the Bull Gravano, made member of the New York crime family. He testified against the Teflon Don John Gotti, Frankie Locke, and several other New York Wiseguys. Sammy the Bull did a small stint in the Army as well and just missed Vietnam. He probably would have been a pretty good soldier because this man likes to kill. Now, still alive and going strong, you got Dominic Montiglio. He was a Vietnam combat veteran. When he came home from Nam, he went right to the streets and started working for Nino Gaggi, along with Roy DeMeo, Paul Castellano. He has a podcast where he talks a lot about his art, how he survived combat in Vietnam, and all his horror stories with the New York Gambinos. Now, I can't really call this rat this lowlife a veteran, but Henry Hill, an associate of Lucchese family, he did a short stint in the Army as well, just missed going to Vietnam, and was discharged by the Army for a variety of misconduct. As we all know from the movie Goodfellas, Henry Hill flipped and snitched and cooperated and told against all his friends. Now here's heavyweight made member of the Genovese family. You got Matty the Horse. He worked directly under Vincent the Chin, boss of the powerful Genovese family in New York City. He also served and fought in combat in World War II. After the war was over, he got back into organized crime, spent a lot of time in prison, never rolled, and lived to be to his 90s. Now, some young soldiers who joined the military or fought in combat, they learned a lot. They learned a lot about weapons, how to fight, how to make explosives. And they took everything they learned and applied it back on the streets, whether it was organized crime or street gangs. And now today, you've got a lot of street gangs that are joining the military. Now, they don't make men like this anymore. Here's a high-ranking made member of the Genovese family, Benny Eggs. He was right under Vincent the Chin. This guy never rolled, lived to be 95 years old, was a heavyweight for the Genovese family. He also served in World War II as a U.S. Army top bomb gunner. Now here's top-ranking Chicago outfit back in the day, Johnny Roselli. And you could see what happened to him. He was found off the coast in Florida in a 55-gallon drum. Johnny Roselli served in the military as well, World War II. He was also involved in the plot to kill JFK, the plot to poison Fidel Castro in Cuba. He worked right under Sam Giancana, but eventually met his fate. Now here we got legendary Sonny Franchise, made member of the Chicago Colombo family, going back to the early 30s and 40s. He was drafted by the U.S. Army, but then later discharged on homicidal tendencies and psycho issues. According to his son Michael, the government framed his father, and he did a long stint in prison for a crime he did not commit. He lived to be 103. Now, another major member of New York crime who also served in combat, you got this gentleman here. And if you think about it, being in the military is very similar to being in organized crime. There's leadership, there's structures. You're a soldier, you're given that order, you have to follow that order. And like Nick Calabrese said, if you don't follow that order, you go too. Here's leader of the Westies, a notorious Irish gang from Hell's Kitchen, just a few blocks west of Times Square. You got Mickey Featherstone. He actually did a short stint in the Army as well, but just missed going to Vietnam. As we all know, the Gambino family would farm out contract murders to the Westies. This guy eventually got caught and spent a lot of time in prison. Now, if you're ever in Bridgeport, Chinatown, or going to a White Sox game, definitely cruise past the Italian American Club. And to the right of the club, you've got all these little bricks, and in each brick, etched in the brick, is military men, those who served and fought in combat. Most of them are Italians, and a lot of them are from the Bridgeport neighborhood. But this is like a little memorial for all of our veterans. Now, of all our great men that served and gave their lives in our wars, they would be turning over in their graves to see how our country turned out. Everyone's talking about defunding the policemen. And here, since the pandemic and the riots, you got Black Lives Matter. These guys are looting and destroying all our great cities across the country. Unfortunately, the police have no control of this. Now, all of our great cities have gone to hell. World-class cities like Chicago, New York, Philly, Miami, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle. You've either got tent cities or you got the zombie crackheads that have taken over. It's out of control. A lot of people are afraid to go into the cities because this is what you're going to see. But unfortunately, this is the new world we live in. Hopefully, our leaders can clean this up.